Welcome back, y'all, and if you're new here, then just welcome. Whether or not you new here or you been here, like the video so I know y'all enjoying this type of content. I know Christmas just passed. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, happy or merry that to you. As y'all can see from the title below, I'm gonna be reading some strange, or whatever I title it, stories that happen around Christmas or the holidays just in general. So without further ado, sit back, relax, grab you a snack, cut on your light if you get scared easily, and let's get into it. All right, so this story takes place around 4 years ago, and it still haunts me to this day. It was Christmas night, and my family and I were driving home from a fancy restaurant. I, unlike my family, wasn't tired, so 45 minutes seemed like a short drive. But on top of that, my sister was constantly moaning about how her friend didn't get anything for Christmas. Like, what were we supposed to do about that? After about 20 minutes of driving, my dad stopped at a gas station. We all got out to use the restroom. I stayed in the car, however, because I had already peed before we left the restaurant. Once they all left, I decided to play a few games on my phone, but I noticed time was ticking, so I looked at the car clock. And I saw 10 minutes had passed by. I immediately wondered what was taking them so long. What's going on? As I peered out the car window, I saw a man staring at our car. The man startled me, as I didn't know how long he had been watching me. What made it even more unnerving is that he had a plain, blank face, no expression shown. What's on your mind? As he stared at me, I stared back. I was trying to make out some of his facial features, but it was hard because it was pretty dark out there. He wasn't standing in any spots that illuminated his face, but I did notice he was about 5'9" and middle-aged. Once he saw me notice him, he started walking towards the car. I know you lying. I know you lying. And I'd be lying if I tell you I wasn't scared. I was scared out of my mind. Luckily, my dad came back with the rest of my family just in time, and the man took a couple steps back, still acting as if he still wanted to approach, even though he seen my family with me. When my dad got back into the car, he apologized and told me he had been in an argument with the cashier. I didn't care. I was just glad he was back in his car. When I took another glance at the man outside, he was still staring at me, except for now he had an annoyed look on his face. We drove off, and for the rest of the car ride, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. What did he want? Why was he watching me? How long was he watching me? Now, this alone wouldn't have been that bad. It wouldn't have been that bad if it just ended here. But later that night, I was watching YouTube while everyone in the house slept. I'm a night owl. Luckily for me, a storm was raging over us. How was that lucky for you? See, me, I enjoy storms. It makes me feel cozy as I lay in bed, slapping my feet between the sheets. I put my phone down and I enjoyed the ambiance that the storm was giving me outside. I understand that. It didn't last for long as I heard something smash into the window behind me. I lunged forward, nearly falling out of my bed. I thought it was a bird that had smashed into my window. As I parted the blinds to look outside, the next thing I saw will haunt me forever. I saw a man standing outside by my parents' car. Hello? Police? It didn't scare me enough to not keep looking and trying to figure out who this man was. As I took a closer look, I nearly had a heart attack. It was the man I saw from the gas station. How did he get here? I have no idea, as we left before him and he was still on foot. There's no way he could have followed us without my dad noticing. When our eyes met, he actually grinned. That's the creepiest, most haunting part. Me, being 14, I did a death scream to the top of my lungs. My dad came running down the stairs and into my room. Why the f*** are you screaming? He said, Dad, I could be in here. Anything could be happening to me, Father. After I explained everything, my dad grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. After waiting 10 minutes, which felt like an eternity, the police finally turned up outside of our house. And he found the man in our shed. He got arrested, and that was the last time I saw that man. Fast forward to the next day, my dad inspected our house, and he found that the handle to the back door had been damaged. Not completely broken, but almost. To think, if he actually would have managed to break in while everyone was sleeping, he could have harmed us or worse, possibly unalived us. That's actually one of my worst fears, being followed home. Now, this happened a few years back. I went to my dad's house for Christmas. My parents are now divorced, so I rarely go over there. But this year, my siblings were putting pressure on me, so I just went. It took nothing but 15 minutes for them to stress me out so bad that I got a headache. We all sat around opening presents with his new wife, my crazy aunt and grandmother, and my siblings. We make it around in a circle, opening presents for about 2 rounds before my grandma just abruptly gets up and leaves the room. My father starts looking around as if he's looking for something, all anxious like. Everyone's patiently waiting for my grandma to come back. My father then spots something across the room. It looked like cat puke. He turns and asks his wife, "Honey, does that look like cat puke?" That's when his wife abruptly gets up and follows my grandmother out the room. It was not cat puke. It was my grandma. Yes, you heard right, my grandma. That lady had pooped all over the couch, and it didn't take long before the smell of poop filled the air in the room. No amount of air freshener was fixing that. My grandma then comes back in the room wearing nothing but a blanket on her lower half. The couch is covered in plastic and towels. My little sister is forced to sit next to my grandma even though she just shat everywhere. I felt like I was in the middle of a zoo. A circus, if you will. To top it off, we were all still expected to sit all nicely and open more presents, pretending like my grandma didn't just poop all over the couch. Also, the following day, my tooth exploded. Apparently, I had a big abscess in my tooth. Never felt the thing until it exploded in my mouth. This is why I don't go to my dad's house on Christmas. I feel like this not your dad's fault. I feel like you gotta cut your dad some slack. That's grandmama's fault. And you, because you didn't go to the dentist. I don't consider myself to be like everyone else. I don't really like Christmas. It's never really felt like happy holidays to me. I've always found myself creeped out by winter nights and Christmas Eve in general. It gives me the chills. I've never had any Krampus encounters, but I do remember being unable to sleep and always wanting to listen for Santa when I was little. Hearing strange noises that sound like scratching and thumping on the walls, as well as voices that didn't match my family's. So ever since I was little, Christmas has always given me the heebie-jeebies. Every time around the holidays, these voices would come, and they would seem to travel around my house consistently. I do, however, feel like I grew up in a haunted house, but I never would experience or encounter anything except for on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. That's the only time I remember the creepy noises and voices. My family also has a lot of spooky experiences of their own around this time. So I was about 16 years old when this occurred. It was Christmas Eve and snowing heavily. It was me and my parents. We were sitting in the living room watching the Christmas lights on the tree. We were having eggnog and opening up our stocking gifts. It was our little tradition. We suddenly heard a knock on the door, more of a bang really, and it knocked loudly 3 times. We looked out the window, but we saw no one. My dad opened up the door, looked down, and there was a bloody black cat laying across our threshold in the snow. I personally thought that was effed up, but there was no human footprints to even put them there, not a tire track or nothing. So logically, there was no way anyone could have physically done this. On top of that, we didn't see anyone outside when we looked, putting the cat there. It was still alive, so we shut the door and left it there. Y'all left the cat? Oh my God. Just kidding. My family and I are huge animal lovers, so of course we took him in and made him comfortable. It turned out the cat was a young male that had not been fixed yet and had gotten into a terrible fight. A few days later, we took him to the vet and he recovered nicely. The weird thing was, we never could figure out the knocks on the door and the absence of footprints in the snow. But we did end up just pushing that aside. My mom ended up giving the cat to our friend who lived down the street. So maybe about 4 or 5 months went by. The cat was happily a part of their family now. But I remember one particular night, they said the cat woke them up howling and screaming, just freaking the F out. Turns out it was an electric fire in the garage. One of the cars was actually on fire. They all ended up getting out the house safe without anything blowing up. But they were lucky in general because there were a lot of flammable things in that garage. They had initially called him something stupid like Shadow, but after saving their lives, they called him Clark Kent after Superman. We still have no idea where this cat came from, but he turned out to be a lifesaver. He was a nice, loving cat, and he lived to be pretty old too. Was this just a coincidence, or did that cat come at the right time? Let me take you guys back to the first Christmas after my grandpa died. I was 17 and I didn't know how to handle the shit show of emotions I was having. I was very confused. It was Christmas morning and I was sitting on the floor with my brother. We were opening presents. We noticed 2 cards tucked in between the tree. I opened one of them because it had my name on it. It was in my grandpa's handwriting. All it said was, "I love you, Peanut," which was his nickname for me. He had passed in August, but prior to this, he had never given me a Christmas card in my life. My mother refuses to acknowledge this happening, but my brother, Oh, he remembers it well. And up until about 9 years ago, there was a picture of me actually holding this card. But when I finally dealt with the grief that I had been previously shoving down, the picture vanished. It vanished into thin air, to the point where to this day, I don't even know if the picture actually existed or that was me grieving. Let me start by giving you guys a little context. Growing up, I always felt like the house that I lived in was haunted. It was the feelings of being watched, hearing those weird noises, just creepy vibes in general, especially in the basement, which was on the top floor of the house. It wasn't a terribly old house. It was built in the 1940s, and my mom and her two sisters, along with my grandma and grandpa, moved in the 1950s. Only one family had lived there before them. The family that lived there before consisted of a mother and father and one daughter. More on that later though. I never thought of it as like a classic haunted house though. The thing is, it just felt like a bunch of restless spirits. While growing up, nothing too outrageous ever happened. It was just, like I said, the weird, creepy vibes. Fast forward to now, I'm 31 and I haven't lived there since I was about 19. And last December, I brought my girlfriend home for Christmas so she could meet my family. However, before making the trip, I had to have a talk with her about the creepy experiences so she wouldn't get too freaked out. To my surprise, she told me she had also had a lot of creepy experiences of her own, seeing and talking to people that no one else could see, apparently dead people. This terrified me, but she explained that it hasn't happened for many years, but she definitely feels in tune with others and the world around her. I feel like I should also mention that she told me her mother had a lot of the same experiences growing up too. Now, when I brought her home for Christmas, I didn't even think twice about it. I didn't think about any of the things that she told me, her experiences growing up, her background, the creepy vibes, nothing. Now, this is the unexplainable part. The top floor of my childhood home is basically just one room with 2 beds in it. Both of the beds are on the opposite side of the room from where the stairs are, if that makes sense. Basically, once you come up the stairs, you have to turn around and walk across to get to the beds. This happened on the first night. We're upstairs, laying in bed, trying to fall asleep. I can feel my girlfriend's body starting to relax. She's starting to fall asleep just like I am. Right at that point, I hear an extremely loud, fast pair of footsteps running at the top of the stairs, across the room, and towards the bed. Now, as I'm laying down, I feel a small hand grab my foot and jerk it. I shoot up. I look around the room with my eyes, and I see nothing. This scared the living shit out of me. At the same time, I also feel my girlfriend's body jerk awake too. We're just sitting there. Neither one of us makes a sound. Neither one of us moves. We both just ended up laying there in silence until I finally mustered up the courage to ask her if she was awake. She says yes, and then she asked me if I heard that. So me, I'm trying to rationalize the situation, but there was no way to rationalize it. So I asked her, "What do you mean?" She said it sounded like somebody ran towards the bed and grabbed your foot. That's when I finally just had to tell her, yeah. We kind of just chuckled about it and started trying to figure out ways to rationalize it. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier. I have a little brother and he's 11 years my junior. He still lives at home. He isn't really prone to pranks or scaring people, but I immediately think that it was his hand, just because my brain is trying to rationalize something that can't be rationalized. But once I started thinking about it, there's no way he could have snuck up here without being seen. I looked all around the room and no one was in there with us. I finally tell my girlfriend that I'm going downstairs and I have to see if anyone else is up or if they heard anything, because this is crazy. Before I left, I put on the TV in the room and she nervously tells me to hurry up. She don't want to be up there alone. When I got downstairs, I can't lie, I was relieved to see my brother up. Even though he was half asleep, eating snacks, watching TV, I asked him if he heard anything. Cause what? So he kind of sat there and looked at me and I noticed his facial expression changed. He then proceeded to tell me that when I moved out, apparently the weirdness of the house had intensified. He didn't want to bring it up to scare me or my girlfriend though. He then proceeds to tell me that a few days ago, he was in the bathroom downstairs washing his hands when he seen in the mirror a little girl standing in the bathroom shower. Now this creeped me out a lot. He then goes on to keep telling another story where my mother recently threw a party and she invited over a psychic. She was giving everyone free psychic readings, right? So when my mom walked in the room for her psychic reading, the psychic goes, "Well, who's this little girl with you?" Oh no, I was through at that point. Mind you, it's the middle of the night. I'm standing there in my t-shirt and some drawers. It was pretty unsettling to say the least. I decided to go back upstairs and see what my girlfriend wanted to do because we can leave in the morning. We can leave in the morning, boo. I go back upstairs and I tell my girlfriend, we don't have to rationalize or explain everything. We can get up out of here if you want that to happen, okay? My girlfriend then decided she wanted to stay for the family's sake and we tried to get us some sleep. We decided to leave the TV on as we were still pretty spooked out. So we laid there for a while. It felt like forever, but finally we fell asleep. When suddenly an extreme loud banging happens right next to our head where we're laying in bed. I immediately sit up and yell, "Leave us alone!" And then I laid back down. My girlfriend softly whimpered, "I bet you wish you would have got up out of there." Now, I was pretending to put on a brave face for my girl. It was super late, and at this point, I don't even know where we could have gone. That's when I decided, you know what, there's no sleep to be had tonight. I let my girlfriend fall asleep, and then when the sun came up, I fell asleep for a few hours too. The next day, I bring all this up to my mom, and she looks at me the strangest way and says, "I know, it's gotten really weird since you moved out, son." Sorry, Mom, what? You knew? This is when she drops a huge bomb. Her and her family moved into this house. Remember I told you that? With my grandma. My mom and my grandma were digging in the backyard, trying to put a garden in. And in the back part of the yard, where they were digging, they found a small box. In the box were some badly worn scraps of paper. They couldn't make it out, but with it was a jar that looked like it had a very black and thick liquid in it. And they didn't know what that was either. They ended up throwing the box away. Now, this next part is purely speculation from my mom and grandma. They believe that the girl who lived in the house before them had gotten pregnant and got rid of the baby herself. They think she feared being a teen single mom in the 40s, so she got rid of the baby and buried it in the backyard. So there you go. Mind fucking blowing. What caused everything to ramp up when I left, I have no clue. Maybe it was having my girlfriend in the house who was in tune with that type of thing. I don't know, but regardless, it's always terrifying visiting my house, especially around the holidays. This is why I refuse to go. But I know one thing is for sure. Next holidays, my family will not be seeing me, at least not in that house. This happened on Christmas Eve. I was about 14 years old. We had a lot of snow this morning, but I still wanted to ride my horse. So I went down to the stables and saddled him up. I always tied my horse to my parents' porch when I rode up. The stables were about a mile away, but I was used to that walk. I was getting ready to take my horse back to the stables when my friend came up asking for a ride home. So I gave her a ride to her house on my horse. On the way back to my house, the horse wanted to run, so I let him do just that. After a while, we came upon my friend's sister, who also wanted a ride home. She was walking, and I didn't want to let her walk, so I tried to stop my horse, but my horse would not stop. I wanted to give her a ride, but I rode right past her, casually laughing and apologizing, figuring my horse would stop once we got home, but he didn't. He went straight down the driveway and into the road. Now, this is the part I got scared at. I started pulling on his reins hard to the point where I was standing up, using all my strength, but he didn't slow down at all. I could see cars swerving through the crossroads as he was galloping with no intentions of stopping. My horse even tried to jump a brand new Ford LTD truck. He hit it chest high and I was tossed off of him into the road. He did a perfect somersault and slid on the ramp past the intersection. Luckily for me, I was wearing a thick black coat and 2 pairs of jeans because I hated getting a rash from riding. However, the way I landed, I did break my left wrist. Now, when the police ended up coming, he tried to call for an ambulance. It was Christmas Eve. There was none available. I couldn't help but to think that my horse was possessed. My horse had never done anything like this before, and this was very strange. For it to happen on Christmas Eve was even more strange. I don't know why, but breaking my wrist the day before Christmas was very upsetting. And it did make me a little afraid of my horse. This happened to my mom during the 80s. So my family was having a Christmas party, which ended in the late hours of the morning. Now, when my mom and her cousin was taking out the trash from the party, they saw their neighbor sitting outside by the gutters, rocking in a rocking chair just a-smiling. She waved, and the girl out there waved back. As my mom took a closer look at the girl in the rocking chair, she said, "That's not Sarah." She remembered her neighbor had shoulder-length hair, and this girl in the front had hair down to her ankles. Her ankles? And she was also wearing a white sleeping gown, looked nothing like Sarah. They both started screaming and ran back into the house. The next morning, they learned that the neighbors were not at home. They spent Christmas with family out the country. Not sure if it was really a ghost, but I'm here to say in the Philippines, it would be so uncomfortable wearing a sleeping gown that long and thick. We're a tropical country. Girl, maybe somebody broke in. I don't know if it was a ghost, but maybe somebody had a little break in. Hair to your ankles is crazy, because where my pen? What's the recipe? I used to live with my grandparents on my dad's side. They've been together a long time. My grandma has always been super spiritual. She's even low-key an animal whisperer. It amazes me how she can tame animals and talk to them. She's really a real-life Snow White. My grandpa, on the other hand, he's a retired Army sergeant. Very introverted, very serious. The only reason he believes in the paranormal is because my grandma introduced it to him. So it was 2 days before Christmas and my grandpa had his own experience. His sister was pregnant with her first baby and they decided not to reveal the gender. They wanted it to be a surprise. One night, my grandparents are sleeping together and my grandpa is jolted awake. He was very groggy and confused, almost irritated when he woke up. He usually wakes up around the time he was jolted up, 4:30, for his job. He rubs his eyes, looks around. Without any fear or concern, he sees my grandma in the corner of the room. She had already passed away. She was rocking in the rocking chair holding a baby. This was sort of like a premonition for him and he didn't even realize. My grandpa started to say something, but my grandma started shushing and rocking the baby back and forth in a chair. She looked up at my grandpa and she said, "It's okay. She's okay. I have her right now and she's gonna be okay," referring to the baby. He thought he was dreaming. He didn't even remember falling back asleep and waking up. When he did eventually wake back up, he went to work and thought nothing of it. Thought it was just a strange dream he had, right? When he came home from work, he got a call from his sister. Unfortunately, she had miscarried. She had miscarried in the early hours of the morning, around 4:30 or so. She told him it was a baby girl and she was absolutely devastated. Of course, she had lost a baby, that's expected. My grandpa said he was absolutely at a loss for words. He couldn't even begin to wrap his head around it. Then he thought of his dream. He had dreamt about it. When my grandpa told his sister this, she broke down crying, inconsolable with tears. Now, I've heard of family members coming to you before tragedy, not so you can necessarily prevent it, but just for you to know that everything is going to be okay. So I 1000% have heard a story like this before. That's a crazy story to end on. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all so much. Like the video. Let me know y'all like this type of content. Share it with your friends. Just copy the link and share it. You ain't even got to send it to nobody. Leave anything in the comments. Leave a Christmas tree because it's the holiday season. Happy holidays once again. I love y'all and y'all already know I'm going to see y'all in the next one. Bye. I would have been afraid too. A horse jerking and yerking you all around in the street. Huh? I won't hurt my ankles. All right, let me go edit. I'll see y'all later. Well, since y'all still here, let me know what other little creepy kind of stories y'all want to hear. Or you know what? They don't even have to be creepy because I'm going to still throw this little creepy music behind it to creep you out anyway. So they don't got to be too scary. Because y'all be like, y'all be scared. Is it just me who like to get creeped out? That's why I tried to make these not too scary. I'm going to put like strange holiday stories or something like that. I like to be creeped out, okay? Okay? Then I sleep with the TV on for 17 nights and 45 days. Family, where are you at? What could he be looking at? Now me, I endure storms. Endure? Come quick. 911. He's on the run. He followed me home. I'm finna go upside his dome. Hello, come quick, police. The gas station. Am I okay, Father? Do I need anything, Dad? Now she done pooped on the floor. Hello? You good, Grandma? I can't. Sorry. You home? Sorry, Mom, what? You knew? Okay. All right. I don't want to hear that shit.